Is your biological clock ticking? Well, good. It should be. 24. The number of hours in one Earth day, and roughly the period of the human circadian rhythm. Like other biological cycles seen in nature, the human circadian rhythm adjusts to the environment through external cues, especially daylight. Circadian light and dark cycles have been present throughout human evolution. It therefore makes sense that human physiology and behavior is deeply affected by changes in the visible light spectrum. In the cell, certain clock genes are activated at specific times of the day in order to selectively instruct the production of proteins. The cyclic production of these neurohormones and neuropeptides signals various functions such as sleep and wakefulness. Circadian rhythms also influence blood pressure, body temperature, coordination, cardiovascular efficiency, and reproduction.
Although circadian rhythms are endogenous, they are adjusted to the environment by external cues called zeitgebers. The primary zeitgeber in humans is daylight, a process known as photoentrainment. Daylight enters through the eye and is received in a special type of ganglion cell in the retina. The information travels from the ganglion cells down the retinohypothalamic tract into two wing-like structures of the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The SCN is composed of a few thousand neurons. Through animal experiments, researchers have verified that the SCN contains our biological clock. If we look inside the SCN, we see that each nerve cell fires with a circadian rhythm. Activation of the SCN evokes responses in neurons whose axons first synapse in the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus and descend to the preganglionic sympathetic neurons in the intermediolateral zone in the lateral horns of the thoracic spinal cord. The preganglionic neurons modulate neurons in the superior cervical ganglia, whose postganglionic axons project to the pineal gland in the midline near the dorsal thalamus. The pineal gland synthesizes the sleep-promoting neurohormone melatonin from tryptophan and secretes melatonin into the bloodstream where it modulates the brainstem circuits that ultimately govern the sleep-wake cycle.
Now that we've gone through the typical pathway, let's see what can go wrong. First, let's hear some typical problems college students face.
This week I pulled 2 all-nighters because I had 2 long papers due. In class the following days after the all-nighters, I was pretty dead, and I didn't answer any of the teacher's questions, which looked bad.
As a college student, my sleep cycle is all over the place. A lot of times I go to bed at 4 a.m. and have to be at class by 9. Pretty much throughout the day, I'm really groggy, can't pay attention, and I only really get my sleep in the weekends.
Dr. Yeager has considerable experience studying circadian rhythm and has some important advice.
From a student's point of view, the worst thing you can do is pull an all-nighter. You got to get 8 hours of sleep not only the night before the test, but at least 2 nights before the test, because of sleep's role in forming memories.
However, there is some good news.
If you have an irregular sleep pattern for an extended period of time, can it affect your circadian rhythm permanently?
We don't think that there's permanent effects on your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is really quite robust, and as you'll see, is really genetically controlled and pretty hardwired.
Your rhythm is really stable, and it's very hard to change the rhythm itself. Phase of the rhythm, on the other hand, is relatively easy to change.
It seems that the rhythm is relatively impervious to outside sources. What controls the circadian rhythm?
Evidence from many different domains suggests that the cell is the fundamental unit for the generation of circadian oscillations. It is really a set of genes within cells that lead to the generation of circadian timing signals.
Even this robust system can sometimes go wrong. Let's hear some examples of more extreme pathologies.
A lot of disease processes, especially things like depression, the fundamental pathology underlying everything else is a problem with the biological clock. But now people are talking about bipolar disorder fitting into that category too. People are starting to think of the rhythm and sleep disruption as causative rather than a symptom for some of those.
There is clearly a lot of fascinating new work being done. Let's explore what methods researchers use to study circadian rhythm functions.
Fundamental techniques for sleep studies. It's polysomnograms, which is a combination of EEG electrooculograms, measuring eye muscle, electromyograms, and then you combine that with a range of physiological monitors, blood oxygen concentration, EKG, respiratory function, muscle tone. And recently, people have been using TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, in some very cool sleep studies. Selectively either enhancing or knocking out activity in small regions of the cortex to see what effect it has on various sleep parameters.
In order to combat sleep phase disorders, doctors have prescribed melatonin supplements. However, it has become clear that the chemical aspect of the circadian rhythm is only part of the solution. Devices for behavioral conditioning, such as light alarm clocks, help stimulate the awake cycle by gradually shining light on the user before the alarm is set to go off. Further research has shown that blue light works best on the melanopsin receptors, which are specific for the circadian rhythm. Additionally, doctors advise not eating 4 hours before sleeping for patients with sleep phase disorders, as the body can adjust to wake up when hungry in the morning. We have explored the neural pathway of circadian rhythms, seen how people suffer when they go against their biological clock, as well as when the circadian rhythm itself is off. New technologies such as TMS have great potential for further investigating these ubiquitous biological phenomena.